Imagine discovering your loyal dog's nightly growls were warnings of a hidden danger threatening your home's foundation. Could your pet's instincts save your family from an unseen catastrophe? James watched with growing discomfort as Storm, their usually gentle German shepherd, settled once again beside the baby's crib as night fell on their modest home. Before diving into the story, I have something special to announce. During this video, I'll reveal a magic word. If you comment with that word, you'll enter our contest to win exclusive prizes every week. Stay with us and watch closely for the hidden word. Storm was always their silent protector. But what if this time, his instincts were warning of something they couldn't see? Would you trust your dog's senses over your own? Let us know in the comments. The same sequence occurred again, just as it had each night over the past 2 weeks. Storm's ears pointed sharply ahead, his posture stiffened, and a low, continuous growl rose from his chest. "I can't figure it out," James whispered to his wife, Margaret, who was leaning against the nursery door. Storm had been a cherished part of their family for 5 years. Since they adopted him from the animal shelter, he had consistently been incredibly gentle, particularly with the neighborhood children, who would gladly stop to pet him during their evening walks. When they brought baby Oliver home from the hospital 3 months prior, Storm was only protective and gentle. He would rest quietly next to the crib during afternoon sleeps, his tail gently wagging whenever Oliver stirred. However, 2 weeks ago, something shifted, and now, every night on the dot, Storm would keep watch and growl. Dogs are known for sensing danger before humans can. Do you think Storm is picking up on something real, or could this be a strange coincidence? Share your theory below. The best one will get a shout out in our next video. The spring nights were becoming warmer, and James had completely inspected the nursery every time. The windows were firmly latched, the screens undamaged, and there were no indications of any unwanted guests, such as mice or squirrels. Nevertheless, Storm's actions continued, consistently fixated on the same corner of the room, even while Oliver slept soundly. Margaret proposed bringing Storm to the vet for an examination, speculating if he could be feeling discomfort or anxiety that caused his behavior. What do you think is behind Storm's behavior? A hidden threat, or just canine intuition? Let the debate begin. Leave your thoughts in the comments. The checkup showed no abnormalities. Storm was in excellent health for a dog of his age. The vet clarified that dogs can respond to environmental changes imperceptible to humans, such as faint sounds or variations in air pressure. James dedicated hours to watching Storm, recognizing that the dog's growling was neither aggressive nor menacing. It appeared more as a caution, akin to his reactions when he noticed odd sounds outdoors. Storm never displayed any hostility towards Oliver. Actually, he seemed to be standing as if to protect the baby from something in that corner of the room. "Perhaps we ought to have someone inspect the house," Margaret proposed one evening, her tone reflective, following yet another instance of Storm's odd behavior. "Do you recall last autumn when he kept clawing at the kitchen wall?" It became clear there was a pipe leaking inside. She was right. Storm's instincts had been trustworthy in the past. The following day, James observed something that caused him to hesitate while changing Oliver's diaper. He sensed a faint draft by the corner, where Storm consistently. The word for today's contest is guardian. Comment it below and tell us, is Storm a loyal guardian or just reacting to instinct? The best responses will qualify for a surprise prize. It was hardly detectable, yet it caused the baby mobile to spin just a little. Could this be what was troubling Storm? Dogs are recognized for their sensitivity to various stimuli, and due to their sharp hearing, they can perceive sounds that are far beyond what humans can hear. As James got ready for bed that night, noticing Storm's watchful stance by the crib, he resolved, in the morning, he would contact a home inspector to carefully assess the nursery. Clearly, something was off, and if Storm intended to alert them, James was resolved to uncover what it was. He bent down to pat Storm's head, getting a quick wag of the tail in reply, yet the dog's gaze remained fixed on that corner. "Good boy," James whispered, thankful for his faithful friend's commitment to safeguarding their family. Whatever was troubling Storm, they would uncover the truth, not only for their own reassurance, but also for Oliver's safety and Storm's ease. The enigma would soon be unraveled. But for this evening, James found solace in the fact that their loyal protector was overseeing their son with steadfast dedication. Ultimately, dogs frequently detect things well ahead of human awareness, and Storm had repeatedly proved trustworthy to them. The following morning, James acted quickly and contacted the home inspection service right after they opened. The earliest appointment they could provide was 3 days later, which felt torturously long, considering Storm's ongoing behavior. Margaret suggested relocating Oliver's crib into their bedroom temporarily, but James was reluctant, worried it could merely conceal the problem Storm was urgently trying to alert them to. During the day, Storm exhibited an unusual behavior pattern that James had not observed previously. In the morning, the dog appeared completely at ease in the nursery, frequently dozing in the warm sunlight that came through the window. However, as the afternoon drew near, his behavior would slowly change. By 4:00 p.m., Storm would start to pace between the nursery entrance and that enigmatic corner, his unease increasing as night approached. James worked from home that day, organizing his documents at the tiny desk by the nursery. He maintained thorough records of Storm's actions, aiming to pinpoint any triggers. The draft he had observed before appeared to be more intense at specific moments, especially when the afternoon sun warmed the outer wall. As an older residence, James speculated that it could possess structural problems that became more evident with shifts in temperature. Margaret came back from her teaching job at the regular hour, holding a small notebook where she noted down inquiries for the home inspector. She had also talked with her elderly neighbor, Margaret, who had resided in the neighboring house for 40 years. Margaret noted that during the recent major storm, she observed watermarks on her wall, the one adjacent to Oliver's nursery. That evening, while Storm assumed his usual spot by the crib, James entered with a stepladder to inspect the corner more thoroughly. The dog observed closely, but remained still at his station. With a flashlight, James noticed fine cracks in the ceiling paint, branching out like a web from the corner. As he placed his hand on the wall, he sensed a faint vibration, hardly perceptible, but certainly present. Oliver slumbered serenely through everything, his little chest rising and falling with each inhale. The mobile hanging over his crib rotated gently in the breeze, casting moving shadows on the walls. James observed that Storm's gaze followed the shadows, but the dog consistently refocused on that corner, his growl growing deeper whenever the vibrations felt stronger. Margaret dedicated that evening to researching potential causes on her tablet, speaking softly as she confided in James. Margaret's dedication mirrored Storm's vigilance. Have you ever experienced a moment when your pet's actions saved the day? Share your story. It could inspire our next video. It might be something simple, a loose pipe, structural settling, or perhaps an electrical issue, she whispered. But what truly concerns me is why Storm only responds during the night. There has to be something that changes as the house cools off after the sun sets. They agreed to alternate nights to monitor the circumstances. While James was on duty around midnight, he observed something unusual. The gentle draft had intensified, accompanied by a faint sound, neither a whistle nor a hum, but a soft rushing noise that appeared to come from inside the wall. Storm's ears flicked at every sound, his growl retaining that same defensive quality. James lifted Oliver, holding him gently as he moved around the room's edge. But what James discovered next changed everything. Are you ready for the twist? Stay with us to uncover the truth. As he approached the corner, Storm stood and shifted alongside them, placing himself between them and the wall. The dog's actions were not hostile. On the contrary, he appeared even more protective than before, resolute in keeping himself between his family and whatever he felt lurking beyond that barrier. As James carefully placed Oliver back into his crib, a surge of thankfulness enveloped him for Storm's constant watchfulness. Dogs possess instincts and senses that exceed human understanding, and it was evident that Storm was attempting to communicate something important. The arrival of the home inspector was eagerly awaited, but in the meantime, James took comfort in the fact that their faithful pet was on guard. Storm's commitment to safeguarding Oliver was unwavering, providing silent comfort that they were not confronting this enigma alone. That night, as James finally retired to his bed, leaving Storm at his chosen position, he couldn't rid himself of the sensation that they were close to uncovering something important. No matter what it was, he appreciated that they had Storm to warn them before it turned into a major issue. At times, James thought, an animal's instincts could expose what human perception could overlook. The home inspector showed up on Thursday morning as scheduled, his keen eyes quickly observing Storm's alert, tense stance in the nursery. "Dogs are frequently more effective than any device we utilize," he commented, setting his tools back down on the ground. "They are capable of detecting things that our machinery might miss, such as the sound of water flowing in a pipe or wood bending under strain." James clarified Storm's behavioral tendencies, while Margaret kept Oliver close. The inspector paid close attention, nodding as he started his review. He began with fundamental measurements, verifying the walls for vertical alignment and the floors for flatness. Upon arriving at the corner related to Storm, his level exhibited a subtle yet perceptible tilt. "This is intriguing," the inspector reflected, placing his hand on the wall. He took out a moisture meter and slid it across the surface. The device's reading surged notably close to the spot where Storm had been observing. "There is surely increased moisture in this area," he affirmed. "And look here." He directed his flashlight at the baseboards, uncovering a faint dark line. Storm remained nearby throughout the entire inspection, his gaze fixed on the corner. As the inspector knocked on the wall, the dog's ears perked up, and a soft whine came from his throat. The noise was distinct from his regular evening growls, more pressing, as if affirming that someone else had finally recognized what he had been trying to inform them. The examination continued carefully, with each phase uncovering more concerning discoveries. Apologies for the interruption. Before we proceed with the narrative, I respectfully request that you like the video and subscribe to this channel. It holds great significance for us. I greatly appreciate it. The inspector noted considerable water damage on the outer brick, suggesting that a malfunctioning gutter is probably to blame. This wasn't just a structural issue, it was a disaster waiting to happen. Could Storm have prevented a tragedy? Tell us what you think in the comments. Rather than being redirected during heavy rainfall, water was seeping into the wall cavity, gradually undermining the structure. "The vibrations you've been observing," he noted, "are likely due to water shifting through weakened materials. such as loose bricks or rotting wood. It was evident that this problem had been brewing for a while, necessitating prompt repairs to avert additional damage. This situation has worsened because of the unusually wet spring, the inspector clarified. Throughout the day, the sun warms the wall, leading to evaporation and rising moisture. But in the evening, as temperatures drop, the moisture condenses and trickles back down. That recurring motion is probably what your dog has been sensing. It's subtle, yet their auditory perception is much more acute than ours. Margaret pulled Oliver nearer, her expression reflecting both gratitude for an explanation and worry over the consequences. The inspector continued with his assessment, taking pictures and writing detailed notes. He discovered that the problem had extended to the crawl space below, where humidity was beginning to weaken the support beams. Had this gone unnoticed for a few more months, you might have encountered serious structural issues, he cautioned earnestly. The water damage would have continued to expand, possibly threatening the stability of this whole section of the house. Your dog likely protected you from a much larger issue, the inspector remarked with a gesture of admiration. James leaned down to stroke Storm, who had finally calmed a bit, now that others recognized the danger he had sensed. The inspector advised urgent repairs, highlighting that although the situation is serious, it can be entirely fixed with appropriate care. He supplied them with an in-depth report and directed them to multiple credible contractors, capable of handling both the outside water problems and the interior damage. That night, while they awaited the contractor quotes, Storm kept his watchful stance by the crib, though his attitude had changed. His growls were gentler, as if he sensed that assistance was at last on its way. James and Margaret temporarily relocated Oliver's crib into their room, adhering to the inspector's recommendation until the repairs were finished. As James observed Storm acclimate to the new sleeping setup, trailing behind them to their bedroom, while casting a final look at the nursery area, he was filled with immense appreciation for his dog's determination. Storm had identified a significant issue weeks before any human became aware, and his instincts for protection may have averted a potentially hazardous scenario. The contractors started their work the next week, and what they found caused James's heart to race. Upon removing the wall, they discovered that the water damage was much more severe than the preliminary evaluation had indicated. The hidden dangers behind that wall were shocking. But is it possible Storm saved more than just the nursery? What would you have done in James's position? The wooden support beam in that corner had deteriorated greatly, and parts of the wall cavity were infested with mold. The contractor clarified that the vibrations Storm was experiencing were probably due to the weakened beam moving under the pressure of the house. Your dog wasn't merely alerting you to water, the contractor stated, shaking his head in disbelief. This beam could have collapsed unexpectedly. These ancient homes often conceal their issues until it's too late. James observed the workers meticulously recording the damage, reflecting on how many nights Storm had kept watch, aware of the peril that resided behind that wall. Margaret stepped away from teaching to manage the repairs while James was busy. She observed the change in Storm's behavior as the task unfolded. Rather than his worried evening grumbling, he now observed the contractors closely, tracking them as they substituted the damaged materials. The employees became attached to their four-legged boss, astonished by how he would brighten up when they neared the once problematic corner. The nearby veterinarian, who had first assessed Storm during their worry, came by to see how he was doing. She clarified that dogs are capable of sensing faint vibrations and sounds at frequencies well beyond what humans can hear. Storm wasn't just hearing the sound of the water or the creaking wood, she explained. He was likely sensing the general instability of the building itself. Dogs have a remarkable ability to sense when something in their environment seems unusual. While the repairs progressed, James and Margaret realized that numerous other homes in their area faced comparable problems, although none had been identified as early as theirs. Margaret, their next-door neighbor, got her house checked after learning about their situation and discovered similar water damage starting in her walls. The contractor stated that the atypical weather conditions had impacted numerous houses in the vicinity. One evening, while James observed the sunset through the plastic covering the nursery wall, he saw that Storm was acting unusually. Rather than his typical vigilant position and growling, the dog rested peacefully on his bed, observing the workers tidy up for the evening. The noticeable change in Storm's behavior validated James's suspicions. Their loyal friend had finally realized that the threat was diminishing. The repairs lasted 2 weeks to finish, during which Oliver kept sleeping in his parents' room. Storm adapted to the short-term setup, but still made frequent visits to the nursery, reviewing the contractor's work with what appeared to be approval. The employees joked that Storm was their most watchful quality control inspector. James frequently recounted their story to fellow parents at the park, emphasizing the importance of watching their pets' actions. "Animals sense things we often miss," he would say while Storm gently played with Dan on their picnic blanket. What appears as strange behavior might actually be meaningful. They're attempting to convey something important. The local veterinary clinic even invited James to share their experience at a workshop for pet owners, using Storm's narrative to demonstrate how animals can sense household hazards before humans become aware of them. Margaret made a straightforward presentation featuring images of the wall damage and Storm's alert actions, aiding other families in recognizing the significance of heeding their pets' warnings. As the repairs approached final stages, James contemplated how near they were to a possible catastrophe if Storm hadn't been so relentless in his alerts. Had they regarded his behavior merely as jealousy or anxiety, the result might have turned out quite differently. The contractor guaranteed them that the new support beam and waterproofing solutions would avert any similar problems down the line. During this time, Storm received abundant praise and additional treats, yet his deepest contentment seemed to arise from silently monitoring Oliver during their everyday tasks. The nighttime growling had completely ceased, substituted by tranquil, peaceful naps beside the newly fixed wall. James frequently caught himself lingering in the nursery entrance, thankful for the connection shared by his son and their insightful guardian. The day had come at last to relocate Oliver's crib into the completely restored nursery. The walls were repainted in the identical soft yellow, the window frames newly sealed, and fresh baseboards fitted. The contractor installed additional waterproofing on the outer walls and improved the gutter system to avoid any future water intrusion. Crucially, the hazardous decayed beam was substituted with a robust new support. James and Margaret anxiously observed as Storm stepped into the renovated room, each curious about his response. The dog navigated his familiar patrol path, sniffing diligently along the baseboards, focusing keenly on the corner that had troubled him for several weeks. Following a careful examination, Storm sprawled contentedly in his preferred place by the window, showing no growls or indications of discomfort. His calm demeanor provided the perfect reassurance they had been looking for. That night, when they put Oliver into his crib for the first time in weeks, the transformation was remarkable. The space appeared sturdy and safe, devoid of any trace of the breeze that had previously moved the baby mobile. Storm took his regular spot by the crib, but rather than being vigilant and growling, he napped contentedly, raising his head now and then to look at Oliver before lying back down. Did you like this story? What are your thoughts on the relationship between dogs and kids? Is it possible for it to exist? Or is it too dangerous to let them be together? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the story, kindly subscribe to this channel and give it a thumbs up. This tale highlights that the love of others can truly rescue us. And this was just one example of a dog's extraordinary instincts. In our next video, discover a true tale that will leave you questioning what animals truly perceive. Trust us, you won't want to miss it.